Bret, we're here today to take time to talk about your campaign and a lot of different issues about the campaign, and you've been out and about. And one of the topics that has come up is the fact that you have been a very blessed businessman and had success both here in the U.S. And abroad. And if you have a minute, I'd like you to just talk about that.
Well, thank you very much. Yes, you're correct. God has blessed me in a lot of ways and absolutely protected me when I traveled overseas. But working overseas for many years has given me a very unique perspective on many things. And it's made me particularly grateful for all the freedoms that we enjoy as Americans. You know, I've been to a lot of countries that don't have those freedoms. I've been to countries that are oppressed. I've been to countries that are cutting edge in innovation, cutting edge as well as just starting to become democracies. And so I've been able to witness and see a lot of different things in those through their eyes. And so I believe full-heartedly that our freedoms are given to us by God and not by a government. And we must be vigilant in protecting our freedoms. Matter of fact, you know, it's not denying that we have some security and safety issues on the Texas-Mexican border, and that has reached a very critical point and very concerning to me. And we, as Texans, must take action, regardless of whatever Washington does or doesn't do. Public safety is vitally important, and I will work with others in a team, collaborative approach to not only solve the problem, to begin to shut down the border and manage it, but to enhance our safety and security with our local communities because they need help, and all along that Texas border.
Bret, you mentioned rights, and I'd like you to take a minute, if you could, and express the rights that are more important to you, that are vital for you in your campaign, and just explain your stance on some things.
I'd be happy to. You know, last November, Texas voters approved a right to farming amendment to our Constitution. And while it may seem odd and a bit out need to be placing something like that within the Constitution of Texas, property rights and the use of the properties has always been under attack for years. We have a family farm and ranch that's been in DeWitt County and our family since 1884, and we actually acquired the land before that, but we didn't really start farming it until that time. So well over 100 years and pushing into the 150 years. So I am a very strong proponent of private property rights, that is. And so I will be working hard to get the best I can and my influence and my leadership to not be having government intrusion, but keeping those rights solid for Texans.
Wow, that's a long time to have owned property. Could you go and give us a minute about your history, your family history, and how that all came about?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very proud of my Texas heritage and my ancestry that came over from Europe, particularly in Germany and Austria. And I am a seventh generation Texan. I realize that that's not always that important for a lot of folks, but it definitely, for me, says that Texas is my home. I'm proud to be a Texan. And even though we started up in Fayette County when they immigrated here, they worked their way down through Lavaca County, which is part of the district that I will be serving if elected. And they ended up settling in DeWitt County, just kind of south of Yoakum, Texas, and north of Cuero. And so while we may face many different challenges and here in Texas, I'm still proud to call this part of Texas my home. And even though I understand those challenges, I can compare them to around the world, and I've seen very many uncertainties that we face. And sometimes I've had some learnings to see other cultures and other countries and see how they face those difficulties. And so I have the determination, like my ancestry, to work through those difficulties, and I have the hope and, more important, the faith when it comes to Texans and how we go after things and get things solved. We are proud, we are independent, and we want to make sure that we have the best government in place, which is limited, and more importantly, to give the rights to those individuals that have the best need at heart at their own local communities.
You mentioned about your time overseas and how you can compare what's going on here to there and the different cultures. Is there anything specifically that you'd like to talk about that you could bring to the table, having had all those experiences?
Well, when you're up in Austin, as we all know, you're bombarded with a lot of different bills. And so, one, you have to look at each one of those bills and you have to research them, understand what the needs are, how to minimize the impact for taxes, if not even say no to some of the bills that will be coming forward, but to look at the best interest for our constituents and for the voters within my district if I'm elected. But clearly, one of the things that I would like to look at is to see how always are best practices. And having worked, overseas and having some of that experience, but also having negotiated contracts between states and between different companies and actually for my own clients as a consultant to make sure that I'm doing the best that I can do to develop not only my clients' businesses, but also when I worked as a volunteer, actually as a school board trustee, looking to see how we could do better at making our situation more compatible and best practice. And we had a lot of ways to go, but I definitely understand that the vitalness of having a future for our workforce, as well as not only today, but for our future students. And that is what I've been working on, making sure that I get the best opportunities for that economic development.
Your overseas experience is great, and it's a wonderful thing to bring to the table. But what can you bring to the table for the small businessman?
That's a great point. For small business owners, they need to understand that we are indefinitely in a more global society than we ever have been before. And when I say that, it's not just they're selling their goods and services abroad, but some of their supplies come from overseas, whether that come from Europe or Asia or Latin America. And so having real world experience in multiple continents, not only hiring people to bring them to the United States to work, but also hiring people in the United States to go abroad and to create jobs for them and opportunity to help their local business. And for the small business owner, I'm always looking for opportunities to see where I can help develop their business to maybe either open up a market for them overseas that they wouldn't have had. I had an experience like that when I had a small crawfish farm that I was helping, and I got them a contract in the big city of Houston, and that opened the door to have that company at the time be looked at by some European countries to get in their crawfish. And it was amazing because not only was the price per pound almost 30 times of what they were selling it here, it was something that they could see as a continuation and being sustainable over the years. So it was a really good opportunity. So we have to look at not only just the marketplace here, but we got to look at ways to help our farmers and agriculture as well as our small businesses if they have some unique ways of supplying or working together with companies that may do business overseas. And that's what I want to continue to help develop as your state representative.
So, what can the role of a state representative do to help small businesses?
Well, as I was saying earlier, we're looking for great resources and opportunities, and when they can be leveraged in their own backyard, that's preferred and primary. But sometimes we just don't have the resources or the skill sets or the workforce, even though I'm doing everything I can to help develop that, and I'll talk about that here in a second with our education topic that I hope you're going to maybe be interested in. But as a state representative, I want to work to cut the red tape and regulations that hold back local businesses from being able to truly compete in a global marketplace. And so that to me is what a good state representative will do. Will not only look at the opportunities, but begin to remove the barriers and be the advocate for those small businesses and really to help out. And if that means that we can have to do some negotiations to bring in some expertise from outside of the city or outside of the county or even outside of the state, but to make sure that we help those small businesses to bring to them the resources that they need at the right time. And hopefully to a point that maybe they can employ those folks, but really most importantly that they can utilize them either on a contractual basis or otherwise.
Okay, so you mentioned education. So what do you bring to the table, and what would you like to bring to the table as far as education goes?
Well, education is really to make sure that we develop good citizens in our communities. And what I mean by good citizens is contributing to the economy, keeping out of trouble, being productive, and having, I should say, a good society that's working together. And so with education, you're helping to develop the workforce. Let's be honest. I mean, students today are faced with things that a lot of us didn't have when we were growing up. For example, how many of you out there would think about your days as teenagers that you had an automatic payment to your bank or an automatic deposit? And that's forced us into a situation because the company wants to pay you just directly to your bank account. You don't have a check that you have to get and then go take down to the bank. Let's also be honest and think about some of the ways that people are interviewing. For example, I know in my hometown area, which is probably like a lot of you, there are some interview processes that you have to go online to do. You don't just go and fill out an application like what my dad used to tell me. Just go to the front door and pick up an application, fill it out, and get to work. No, you have to go, and you have to go online, which means now we're competing not only with people in my own community or our own community, but in communities outside of even the state of Texas. And so it's a different world for a lot of our youth and the students. And so we really need to work with them and help them understand what are the primary concerns that they're going to be facing and what are the issues that they have to show that they are the right candidate to be hired. Even so, there's one company, it's a larger company, it's a grocery company. They are actually doing their interviewing, first stage interviewing online. You have so many seconds to read the question, so many seconds to answer the question, and then so many seconds to determine whether or not you want to keep that answer before you get on to the next question. And if we're training students to just fill out an application and not be ready for that type of interview, we need to get better.
Wow, I never really gave it much thought, but you're right. The interview process has changed, and you're competing with everybody around the world because of online things. So that's a thing that I didn't realize before.
You're right. It is changing, and I know that there are several large companies in our area that will absolutely post on their front door, do not apply here, go online, or go to the Texas Workforce Commission locally. You know, for many years I've been involved in education, serving as a volunteer. I spoke about that earlier. I was on the school board, and I was elected for 2 terms as a trustee, and I also been a consultant helping small school districts to really ramp up their career technical education. And that today's term is basically, for those of you that aren't familiar, as the vocational technical. But back in my day, and that's some 40 plus years ago, our vocation courses were just limited mainly to the trades, and with maybe 40 or 50 options for schools. But today, the state of Texas provides over 500. So as a small district, you have to determine what's really right for not only the market, what's right for the people that are hiring, but also just what's really right for the students and what can they do, because then you have to go out and find the teachers to be able to teach those courses. So for STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math, to welding, all the way to our agriculture that have tractors that drive themselves. They don't no longer need to know how to be good diesel mechanics, but they need to learn how to program the software to tend to the software as well and make sure that the tractors are doing what they're intended to do. You know, there's drone technology that's out there fertilizing and hydrating our crops. I mean, it's just a different world, and for not only the agriculture, but in manufacturing. And so those are the things that I've been heavily involved in trying to help secure good jobs and get students ready for that workforce. I strongly believe in the value of a good education, And we have to be smart about how we ensure that we can get that high quality learning opportunities for those future generations. It is stated in our Texas Constitution, it is the responsibility of the legislature to provide for public education, for its efficiencies and its operation. And quite frankly, efficiencies to me is not even the correct word. We should be working for superior education. And I'd love to at some point talk more about that, but it looks like we're right up on our time, so I'll give it back to you.
Well, Brett, that's about all the time we have, but before we leave, is any closing remarks that you'd like to leave our listeners?
Well, I just appreciate the time, and for those of you listening, thank you for giving your time to hear some of my thoughts and priorities on the campaign trail to serve as your state representative. If you will grant that privilege to me to serve you as a servant leader, as I've always said when I'm out speaking to folks, it's always said that the good Lord gave us 2 ears and 2 eyes, but only 1 mouth, and for one good reason, and that is to listen. You know, years of dealing with people from different countries, different states, and different cultures, having been educated in a lot of different countries and states, has taught me to listen closely and to give respect. We are losing that in today's society. We don't have what we need to respect authority as much as we used to in the past, and that's something that I can do everything possible to help restore that. We need to listen and hear people out, even when their viewpoints are different than ours, and particularly my own. As your state representative, I want to listen to you, and I also want to listen to the opposition and see what is the best way, the right way, and the right decision, and maybe just have it where people can see the other person's viewpoint, and to stop and be a little bit calm. And I'm not always in your face, but I am listening and definitely working behind the scenes for my constituents and this district's benefit. It's been a pleasure today, and I thank you so much for this time, and I look forward to having any more chances we have for such a conversation. My name is Bret Baldwin. I am running for state representative, and that's Bret with 1 T. And for those of you that are out there listening and attending the forums, I look forward to meeting you in person or to have a simple conversation over coffee. So feel free to give me a call or continue to watch my Facebook page for more information. Thanks a lot.